and gentlemen, good morning and welcome on into another edition of Fantasy Daily. What are we up to, like episode 83 now, I think it is? How crazy is that? Second season, 83 episodes in. Thank you so much for joining me. It is Friday. Finally Friday. What's today's date? September 16th. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, I am your host, NathanPaswell. Follow me on TikTok at Fantasy Daily Football, on Instagram, Fantasy Daily _, all the stuff that you see popping up below. Thank you so much for joining on in. We are ready to go. We are ready to talk about the action of last night's Thursday night football game between the Chiefs and the Chargers, and it was an exciting one. 27-24, the Chiefs walk away the victor, and a lot of implications off of this game as far as fantasy goes, and a lot of fun stuff that we got to see in this game. So our very first, AFC West showing that we get to see between these two, and it was an exciting one. This is one of those teams that we really want to see, kind of battle it out, in the games that we have these high-powered quarterbacks in. You want to see those points. You want to see the, the high fantasy value game. So it was nice to see a bit of that last night. So also the Amazon Prime feed, which a couple of them to begin with, brutal. So I don't know if all of you were watching it, or if because it was on Amazon Prime, you were like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to go through all that. And even if I don't have Prime, I'm not signing up for Prime just to watch football. I did have the Prime already, so we got to watch the football and got to see the next gen stats view, which is a game changer. It shows the routes being run on the field, the lineups at the beginning. So for somebody like me, who that's what I really like to watch, I really like to watch the matchups against who's playing against what corner. They show the players right before. They might even pop up some player profiles on the right side of the screen. So a different dynamic in the way that you really watch football, really more in depth. I liked it a lot, so I'm very excited for next Thursday night's game, where I get to see this, even though I think it's Pittsburgh and Cleveland next week. Not a very exciting game to watch, but at the same time, it's still very cool to see football broken down in that manner on that stage. You know what I mean? That's something that you usually gotta go out of your way to find, or find somebody who makes it on YouTube or something like that to kind of see the play broken down that way. So for somebody like me, that's exactly what I love, watching about football, watching up the matchup, seeing how the routes are run, how they get open, and to see that view up there and, kind of the routes that they draw, and makes it easier for you to see and easier for you to consume as the viewer. I liked it a lot, and I like that you can see it from that view. You don't have to be so close to the field. You can kind of back up a little bit and see a lot more of the field, how the play breaks down and stuff like that. So good stuff from Amazon Prime with their, kind of, I guess, say maiden voyage of them being, involved with NFL broadcasting. So I liked it a lot. I think they had a lot of, ideas. It's kind of one of those XFL things where they get a chance to try out new ideas, and it really doesn't connect with the NFL brand, even though it does. It doesn't. They get to check out some stuff and see how us, the fans, and the consumers like it. So very cool. I liked Amazon, the way that they did that. But going back to the Chargers game in itself, Chargers here, they had a lead for a bit. They could have had a chance to come back, and it was a really great showing from both teams. It was fun to see the the back and forth, and each team really could have given up this game at any point in time. Mahomes had a lot of dropped interceptions. He even acknowledged it on the post-game show, which I thought was pretty funny. And Justin Herbert with the pick six, some missed opportunities there, where they could have easily had this game and really could have turned it over, and it could have been a different conversation today. Could have been a different conversation today about Mahomes, where we were talking about how he looked so good last week. Well, he plays against a defense this week where he did okay, but he had those passes were directly to the defender. That was like me playing in Madden forcing passes into coverage that I should not be forcing. So we are going to break down the game a little bit more. We're going to talk about each team and what we saw and what we think about these teams going forward. Tomorrow, Saturday's show, will be the full game breakdowns. Now, I'm not going to go through every single game like I did last year. We're going to be talking about players and highlights and stuff like that. I might get to a game and go, and you're starting nobody in this game, roll, moving on. But we're not going to break down every single game. I'm going to find a neat little way to package that for you so we can talk about the players that we care about, talk about the players that we're worried about, and kind of comb through each game as we go. Try not to miss anything, but also get you set up for some fantasy gold and some fantasy W's going into this weekend. But let us talk about some injuries. Now, it is Thursday, so this is one of those days where a lot of players will get rested and they won't show up to practice, so they pop up on the questionable. So if you're one of the players or one of the managers today who is freaking out, why are all my players going in questionable, and thinking that you have to panic and run to the waiver wire, it's one of those. Don't worry about Thursday. Wednesday and Thursday are kind of up in the air. You want them to practice on Thursday, but if you don't, then it's kind of, all right, what's going on? But could be a rest day for any, number of reasons. Friday is the day that we're going to be worried about. So if these players that we talk about did not practice today, but they get a full practice in tomorrow or a good session in tomorrow, then it looks good for the weekend. So Leonard Fournette, he was limited with a hamstring. This one is one that I'm a little bit worried about because this was suffered late in the game, and now we're still talking about it here on Thursday, going into Friday. So the update was on Thursday. Today is Friday. So his report today will be very important, but I do think that if you are the Leonard Fournette manager, you should have somebody in the waiting on your bench if you need to pivot. I do like Rachaad White if you're in a deeper league. If Leonard Fournette is out and maybe you have some spots on your bench where you can grab Rachaad White now in case that Leonard Fournette is out, I think that is kind of a necessity when it comes to what this offense is without Leonard Fournette and Rachaad White being the primary pass catching back. If he were to be Leonard Fournette would miss time. So we talked about that a little bit in the offseason, where if something were to happen to Leonard Fournette, or, we'll see a little bit of the passing work get taken away from Leonard Fournette. We saw it a little bit in week 1. Now we're seeing that if Leonard Fournette does miss time, Rachaad White is going to be that guy. So didn't mean for Leonard Fournette to fall off a cliff this early as far as having him in my overvalued section in the offseason, but Rachaad White, I do think that he should be rostered, even if you aren't the Leonard Fournette manager and you have some space on your roster and you just kind of want to, maybe be a jerk or have some upside where if Leonard Fournette does miss an extended period of time with a hamstring injury, you have a running back 1 or a running back 2 with running back 1 upside that you can slot in on any given day, no problem. You can throw it right in there and you feel good about it. So like Rachaad White, like looking at him. No practice for Alvin Kamara today, so this should be just a rest day as well, but he did have the rib injury, so this is a reason why I kept him close to the top of the list as far as talking about them, because this is something that you do want to monitor, where if Alvin Kamara were to miss, then you're going to want to play Mark Ingram, but I do think this is a situation where Alvin Kamara could be limited, and I think that that's going to be one of the things that we hear on Sunday, whereas Alvin Kamara will play, but he will be on a snap count, something like that. So if that's a situation that you do want to avoid with New Orleans playing Tampa Bay this week, I knew that matchup was not great. I didn't remember exactly who it was. But if that is something that you wanted to avoid, or you were thinking about, in a negative light where you were concerned about playing Alvin Kamara already against Tampa Bay, then I do believe that it is a good idea for you to either have a pivot that you really like, or somebody, maybe you have a good running back depth that you can pivot him out, maybe put him in the flex in favor, or put him on the bench in favor of getting a wide receiver in your flex, something like that, however you want to maneuver your team, whatever it may be. Najee Harris, he practiced, so he is in full go mode for Sunday. He looks good to go. J.K. Dobbins, he did not practice, but who cares, because you do not want to start anything in Baltimore, and if you have J.K. Dobbins, please do yourself a favor and move on. Kittle, also no practice. Evans, no practice. Swift, no practice. Those are all rest days for me. I really don't care for those guys until Friday, so I'll keep an ear out for it, but I'm not really worried about it. I'm assuming that they're going to play, and they are those players where if you tell me they're active even on a snap count, I'm probably going to start them. They have to have an injury that I'm concerned about in order for me to hear snap count and want to kind of move away from them. So still looking at them. Those are the injuries that we're going to talk about. We will get more into them on Saturday and then Sunday. If you guys don't know, because I don't know if a lot of, I did have 2 or 3 questions where people were saying, hey, how come you didn't do anything on Sunday? They were like kind of my friends who would text me and go, hey, you didn't have a YouTube show on Sunday. My Sunday shows are on TikTok. So I do Sunday lives on TikTok. I'm going to do them on YouTube if I can. I just hit the subscriber mark. So I'm trying to figure out a way I can configure it where I can be on TikTok and YouTube at the same exact time while answering questions. But, taking questions from both areas. So I was trying to get it to configure here while also filming here, but it's not as easy as it sounds. So I'm trying to do what I can to get my lives on there, but Saturday will be a full breakdown show with the players I like, the players, the start sits basically, and then Sunday Live is basically where I go into the shows, I get into all of them, and I'm live on TikTok, I'm live on Instagram, YouTube, and you can ask questions there. I'll answer start-sit questions while also talking about the last-minute updates. So Saturday's the big show where we go through everything, and then Sunday is, kind of the last-minute stuff where I'll be there for a couple hours with you guys hanging out, answering all your questions. So make sure you follow me there. Make sure you subscribe here. All that good stuff. Now let us talk about the game and what we saw last night. Let us first talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, who got the W 27-24. Excuse me. And Mahomes did have a decent showing. He had 235 and 2 touchdowns. So if you have Mahomes, you're not disappointed in that. It's not a huge week like he had last week where, he blew everybody out of the water and he was the number 1 quarterback by far. But he still has a decent showing in this. He makes you happy. He's going to be in the top 10, top 15 of quarterbacks easily this week. Top 10, I'm definitely. So he did have a lot of interceptions that could have gone the other way. It could have gone very bad for Mahomes. We could have been having a much different conversation this morning about should you be worried about Patrick Mahomes when he throws 4 interceptions, because he easily could have thrown those, and if they weren't dropped, would have been a pretty bad look going into week 2 against the Chargers for their first time going up against the Chargers this year. So could have turned the whole tide for the Chargers if they could have hung on from that. But Mahomes still looked very good. Travis Kelce himself, he got absolutely tossed and bodied by Derwin James. So if you guys haven't seen that clip, check that out on my TikTok. I posted that along with the route that Travis Kelce ran. So that is actually also in that view of Prime Video. So if you guys haven't seen that, check that out. It's also the replay of the Prime Video that they do on Thursday night where you can kind of see the routes, and the camera angles that they have over there. So you really see Travis Kelce go into the top corner. He has it. If he just finishes his route and keeps running, he doesn't turn back or cut back. Like, you're supposed to catch the ball and keep running. You're supposed to stay in stride with that, and he does not stay in stride. He grabs it. He kind of pivots and second guesses himself and runs in. If he made that cut for the corner of the end zone, Hardman could have given him a chance to block the defender out, and could have been a touchdown for Travis Kelce. I think it would have been a touchdown. So instead, he doubles back. He gets absolutely bodied and postered by Derwin James. Ball comes up, not a fumble. They put it right there. So he got absolutely tossed, but he gave you a good week that you can start on. You wish you had the touchdown right there, but he has a solid week that you can start with. But my biggest takeaway from this game, more so than it was last week, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now, Clyde Edwards looks absolutely great when it comes to just seeing him on the field, seeing the game and watching him play. He really looks explosive. He looks better than he did last year for me. And he looks like he's one of the offense more than he was so last year. So his consistency of what he could be, seeing McKinnon get on the field, you don't really like to see that. Seeing that get worked in really does worry me at times. But Pacheco, or however it's pronounced, he was involved a lot last week, and he could have been involved a lot this week, but instead he only gets 2 carries. So I think that does speak for how much they want Clyde to be on the field. Clyde had the big breakaway run today. I think he had one more other one that got called back. If I remember correctly, maybe it wasn't as big as the other one. But I do think that Clyde could definitely be an insanely consistent option that I wasn't paying attention to at the beginning of the season. I know I've always been off on Clyde, but I'm always willing to, completely roll over by looking at something, looking at the stat lines, with the consideration of Hill being gone, this being a different team. Clyde has been consistent. He had 8 carries and 4 for 4 today, 44 yards, but he had 74 yards on the ground, 15 points in full PPR. And if he had a touchdown on top of that, you'd be very, very excited. So I do believe that his consistency, especially when he's catching these passes out of the backfield, it's not, 6, 7 targets that you're getting out of the backfield from others, but he is constantly involved. He's having basically a couple plays or one play at least on each drive where he's getting involved at the running back position. And when they're going for a running play where they want to run the ball, it's Clyde every time. So I do think that Clyde has a chance to be very, very consistent in that David Montgomery role that we always, kind of reference to from years before, where he wasn't really a glamorous name, but he was consistent throughout the year, and you can trust him going forward no matter what. So I like Clyde a lot. He's not glamorous, he's not exciting, but he looks great on field, and he plays with Patrick Mahomes. So if you're somebody who's struggling for running back, maybe wait until next week where people start to forget about Clyde because of all the Sunday and Monday hoopla that goes on, and see if you can go out and trade for Clyde, because I think that he looks very consistent this year, and he might even be somebody that I look to trade for. As much as I don't like him, as much as I haven't liked him in the past, I'm more than willing to change my mind, and he's a player that I think, I'm at the point where I can't change my mind on him. So, like what I see in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think he has great touchdown appeal every single week. Think he's going to be, very locked onto Patrick Mahomes as somebody he can trust. Excuse me. Now, here's another player that I liked a lot, that I thought was going to be locked to Patrick Mahomes, and I'm not willing to jump off the cliff yet, and that is Mecole Hardman. He is my guy, and he looked to be the one. You can't disagree with me that he didn't look to be the one in this offense tonight. And the reason I'm so over the moon about this, the reason I'm trying to keep this train alive, is because he is so really unrostered in leagues right now. He has a 44% roster. Less than half the leagues right now have Mecole Hardman rostered. He had 6 targets last week, 4 targets this week, and I know it doesn't look great, but he himself hurt himself kind of when he jumped up. The way he landed, it was awkward. He had to get taken off for a little while, but the way the targets were coming for him, it's not there right now. I get it. Maybe if you picked him up this week and you have enough bench room and you can hang on to him, then it's not going to be, too much hazard for you to, wait and see. But keep an eye out for Mecole Hardman. And if you have roster room, maybe throw him on your bench, because I really do think that this can be a thing. I think just from watching the game footage and what you're looking for, Mecole looks to be the number one, and I'm keeping this train alive. I'll die on this mountain. But he was the only one on this team from the year before. He's unrostered everywhere, and I'm very, very excited. But he does only put up 7.5 points in full PPR this week, which means that is an L for the lineup of the week, because he was on my lineup of the week team. So that brings my year total down to 4-6, which is not great. Not great, especially when you're talking about a 12-point total. But that's why we're always trying to grab the low-hanging fruit. We're trying to give you players that really aren't being talked about, that you can play, that are basically unrostered everywhere. Or maybe players that you were down on that are on your bench and you're a little bit worried about playing. So that's the Chiefs side of the ball. Looking good. Kelce getting absolutely tossed, but he looked good. Clyde looks really great. I like that. And Mecole Hardman, I'm excited for. Juju, he kind of falls off, and I'm not really surprised. 4 points. This is kind of what I was talking about in the offseason with Juju. I'm really not surprised at all. If you ask me, should I be worried about Juju? Yeah, I would have been worried at the beginning of the season about Juju. I don't want Juju at all. I don't really want to play in there. I get that he has that appeal, but I really wasn't. It's hard for me to trust that he's better than any of these guys. And like I said, I really like the idea of Mecole being that guy, and seeing what I've seen with that, I really do think that it's coming for Mecole Hardman. So, moving on to the Chargers side of the ball, Chargers falling just short, but now the story is, what's wrong with the quarterback? Is Justin Herbert okay? So you could see Justin Herbert in that game after he took that big hit. I believe it was from Khalil Mack. He looked like he was wincing in pain, and it was difficult for him to keep going in that game. His struggle, some of his throws seemed labored. He did throw a strike to DeAndre Carter right after. That was an absolute dart. That was absolutely insane. Right past 2 defenders, the only hands that you could see, and it was literally you could only see hands, and they were DeAndre Carter's. That was great. That set up the Josh Palmer touchdown. So Josh Palmer, the one we talked about instead of DeAndre Carter, actually in the waiver show, somebody that you could pick up for free on the waiver wire, he gets a touchdown. So that was very nice to see that happen. But the Chargers falling just short. holding your breath, but Justin Herbert has a great game, so we will see what happens today with the reports that come out with Justin Herbert. He has the great game despite the pick six, which really, again, another drive that could have been a really big turning point in this game. But nevertheless, he has 334 and 3 touchdowns, and he showed up big for you. He'll be in the top 10 consideration. Easy, maybe even top 5 this week. Mike Williams exploding after last week where everybody was a little bit panicked. Obviously, Keenan Allen is out. It's a great week for Mike Williams, but really you got to stay exactly where we were with Mike Williams last week, where you have to expect that there are going to be games where Mike Williams kind of disappears, where he goes back to that 3-4 point total, but he has the upside to do this on any given week. Now, Keenan Allen should be back next week. They have the long week for, Keenan Allen to get some more recovery time. Keenan Allen should be back. But I do believe that you play Mike Williams every single week. You keep him in your lineup. You keep playing him no matter what, If you have to have something really good in order for me to put Mike Williams on my bench. He's at very, very least for me a flex spot where I'm like, all right, this is my boom bust upside. These are all my players I feel confident in. So who am I? Am I going the upside of Mike Williams, or am I going the consistency of a Hunter Renfrow? You know what I mean? Where Hunter Renfrow could easily give me 7 points as well, whereas, Mike Williams is probably at the very worst going to give me 4 points, you know what I mean? So am I really going to fight for those 3 points, or do I want the upside? I want the upside. So Mike Williams, very, very difficult for me to bench. But don't be surprised when the 5-point week shows up. You kind of just take it with a grain of salt. Allen should be back next week, but I'm still rolling out Mike Williams on my team every single week. At running back, Austin Eckler, he has a good week, but it's not what you want for what you drafted in Austin Eckler. For right now, when I'm looking at Horvath, or however you pronounce it, he vultured another touchdown. Michelle gets the goal line carries. I got snacks falling down. Michelle gets the goal line carry. And Joshua Kelce got worked in a little bit in times where they needed Austin Eckler on the field, or they needed to, kind of do something. So when you're watching and they're in a gotta-have-it situation and Austin Eckler's not on the field, it's very concerning to you as an Austin Eckler manager. It's very concerning to me when I'm watching the games and going, well, this is where you're going to see Eckler, or if I had prop bets placed on Eckler tonight. I needed him to have 98 yards. He had, 87, I believe it was, so dang it. But Austin Eckler just falling short of my expectations on prop bets, and probably falling short of your expectations right now in the way that you drafted him. So I'm not saying that I'm down on Eckler. You're still rolling him out as that guy every single week. And I'm not saying trade Eckler. But what I'm saying is, you drafted Eckler probably much higher than DeAndre Swift was. And I know you see where I'm going with this, and you might not like it. But I am a huge, huge, huge fan of DeAndre Swift this year. I'm a huge fan of DeAndre Swift going forward. I do believe that he has the biggest chance to be the, biggest return on value this year, like Jonathan Taylor was last year. So DeAndre Swift is my Jonathan Taylor of the year. Even with Jamal Williams there, I think that he's going to eventually just take the number one role and have a ton of work, be able to handle all of it, and also just explode for fantasy value. So if I can work a package together with Eckler involved, with Swift involved, and I get a wide receiver and Swift or something like that, or if I can work around a package where I'm sending, Eckler and somebody else, but I'm getting Swift and something great as well, I might acknowledge it. All right, so it really depends on what I'm getting on the other side of that package. But if you're hurting at wide receiver, and Eckler is kind of in this boat right now where he's getting spelled by other backs and he's not getting that full game workload that you really want, especially in a game like this, especially in a must-have situation against the Chiefs like this, now I'm very worried, because it's not a week 2 thing with that. This is a Chiefs game. This is a division game. This is the Chargers need to set a precedent against the Chiefs. And for them to not have Eckler involved in those moments, it's very worrying for me. So that there alone, I'm not saying go trade Eckler. So don't hear what I'm not saying. But I do believe that if Swift was there for me in a trade with somebody else with a wide receiver or something, and I wanted the wide receiver, I do kind of view Swift as an upgrade from Eckler at the moment. And I know the offenses are gross and you're going to gasp and all that, but Swift looks so explosive. He was great last year. The consistency was there. His upside is absolutely immense, and I do believe that, if you pick Jamal Williams being worked in, or you pick all of the clusters that are being worked in with Austin Eckler right now. So difficult for me to want to trade Eckler. That's not exactly what I'm saying at all. But I just love Swift so much, and I think Austin Eckler is a good piece where you can turn that into Swift, not really feel it, maybe even be upgrading and get something else in addition to it. So I like that a lot. So before we wrap up the show, let's talk about Gerald Everett. Another double-digit fantasy finish for him, and he is still 62% rostered. So Gerald Everett, another great player that I like, that could be, rosterable. You can play him every week, and you can probably feel good about it, especially since he plays with an explosive offense like the Chargers. So that is our show, everybody. Let me just real quick remind you of the lineup of the week in case you missed it on yesterday's show, which if you did, shame on you. Go back and watch because it's such an amazing show. It's the best show. One of the best shows ever, besides this one, because this was the best show ever. You just watched it. But let's talk about the lineup of the week. Currently, I have Davis Mills. I like him at quarterback this week. I have Mecole Hardman, who served me up an L, bringing my record to 4-6. I got Darnell Mooney and Allen Robinson on some bounce-back weeks. I got Michael Carter and Travis Etienne. Michael Carter on the Jets. They're with getting 19 targets between him and Breece Hall last weekend. Travis Etienne, I like him a lot. Tight end Logan Thomas. Should have went with Gerald Everett, apparently. Kicker Tyler Bass, and the defense of the Cincinnati Bengals going up against Dallas. That is my lineup of the week. That is our show. You all, thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in, as always. You all have a good day today. Follow me on Facebook. Not Facebook, I'm not on there. Fantasy Daily, on TikTok, blah, 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 all that good stuff. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Take care.